listeners. We are on season 2 of the podcast Life is Better With You in It with your humble host, Jen Kramer. And we've got a very fun guest on the podcast today, and his name is Kevin Capehart. And so Kevin is a friend of ours. So hi, Kevin. Say hi.
Hi, Jen. How you doing?
Doing wonderful. And Kevin is a singer-songwriter, has a day job, is a dad, probably does all of the things that are entailed with being a dad and having a full-time job and a full life. And so I want to bring people on the podcast that are all about being with people and navigating transitions. And so transitions, I think, always happen, whether they're good, bad, ugly, and we all have different seasons of life when it comes to a transition. So Kevin, tell us a little bit about you and about your journey, and maybe tell us a little bit about your day job and this whole thing about singer-songwriter.
Yeah. So, music's always been a big part of my life. At least since like high school, I got into writing music. I was in like a couple post-hardcore bands, which is very different from what I do right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of the natural progression. I think you grow up and you get a little bit more acoustic emo, right? That's where we all sit in our 30s. So anyway, yeah, that's always been a big thing for me. Of course, I didn't really do it too extensively for a long time. I had a lot of insecurities about it. Most artists do, right? And so I kind of, yeah, I let that kind of take over and kind of drive what I was doing. So I was always kind of a background piece, either playing drums or playing guitar for other people's music. And so about a year and a half ago, my best friend unfortunately died at 36 years old from COVID. And that really just put things into perspective for me.
Wow.
And I had this thing that I'm passionate about and always wanted to do, but was always scared to do it. And, as cliche as it sounds, just realize that life is short. And if this is what makes me happy, then this is what I got to get out and do. And so for the last year and a half or so, I've been writing pretty extensively and playing out, 2 to 3 times a week and meeting people and all that good stuff.
Wow.
My day job, I'm a genetic counselor. I don't know if that means anything to you, but
Oh, tell us more about what that is. I've never heard of that job.
yeah, so I work in a clinical genetics setting. Essentially, my job is to help people understand how their DNA impacts their health. And so I work specifically in cancer, which people come to me if they either have a personal history or family history of cancer. We talk through family histories and genetic testing and then whether or not we need to change any medical management based on their DNA. So that's that pays the bills for me to be able to get out and do this stuff. It's fun. I enjoy it, but yeah, music and then family is the passion really for me.
Isn't it crazy how you can go through like a season of grief and just realize how short life really is? Like it feels very long some days, and like I think there are some seasons in life where it feels very long, but you realize when you're not promised tomorrow, it almost like forces you into a new season of life to like kind of like grab life by the horns and go, okay, I'm just going to like take advantage of this now. And I have tomorrow and I have right now. So like, let's just go. So, love your work that you do as a DNA counselor. Do you have a lot of people that come to you? Is that like is that a busy gig? Being able to like work with people who want to check their DNA just based on family history and stuff?
Yeah, unfortunately it is, right?
Wow.
Unfortunately. But yeah, so I probably see about 500 patients a week, or not a week. Whew, that'd be a lot.
I was like,
500 patients,
wow. Do you sleep?
500 patients a year.
Okay.
And so I work with a team of 4 other genetic counselors as well. And so we each see about 5 patients a day. And yeah, we've got kind of a backlog now of like 2 months with like 200 patients that are always just ready and needing to get scheduled. So it's constant and it's busy, but it's
Wow.
good.
What is one pattern or maybe one tip that you can tell listeners? Because I'm sure anyone that's listening to this podcast has known someone that's affected by cancer, right? Like I think about it right now. I've got a couple people at the top of my mind who I know have battled cancer or who have gone to heaven from it. So tell me, or listeners, like, is there one thing that you see? Like, obviously, we can't change our DNA, but I think that like diet and exercise and everything is a huge impactful. So maybe what's like one freebie tip that you can tell us that you tell everybody at the clinic?
Yeah. So as far as like environmental stuff goes, that's kind of hard to put a finger on how much that's contributing. My cliche thing that I tell everybody is, everybody can think about like smoking being like the main prominent thing for things like
Mhm.
lung cancer, bladder cancer, something like that. But the thing is a lot of people know somebody that smokes their entire lives and they don't get a cough, right? But then
Right.
other people smoke a little bit in college, or they have access to secondhand smoke and they end up getting stage 4 lung cancer. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say with like environmental stuff. My go-to is just to tell everybody, the same things you've heard your whole life, right? Live healthy lives, do what you can. And then the big things that our family history, we're starting to realize that is a lot more impactful than we once thought. And so if there's, a pattern of any one type of cancer in your family and you're curious about it, then, talk to your doctor about it, about getting referred to a genetic counselor like myself. And we can work through that with you and figure out if there is anything in your DNA that puts you at a higher level going forward. So,
Wow. Interesting. All right. So let's kind of pivot to this singer-songwriter passion. So you went through a season and a transition of grief, and you've kind of put yourself out there in the public space, right? Where you kind of open yourself up to criticism because you're doing a new thing and you're doing something and you feel like you're a beginner at it, but you're super passionate about it. And it seems like right now you've been doing it pretty consistently. So you told me that you went on this journey from being an introvert to an extrovert. And was this part of that journey and transition for you? And tell our listeners about that because I don't know how much I believe you.
so all right. So to be fair,
To be fair.
I will say that I don't do what is the Enneagram. I'm not
Oh
real
yeah, yeah,
familiar
yeah.
with that, but
Yeah. I've only done the
my
free version.
generations was like the Myers-Briggs, right? And so back when I was an introvert, the two were close, right? So they weren't, I think I was like a 35% introvert, or sorry, 35% extrovert and like 65% introvert, right? So like I used to always describe myself as being a social introvert. So one that likes to go out but needed to recover at home, right?
Ah,
And so I would get drained, and basically I could go out a couple of times, a week, but then I would get super drained and need to just be at home for like a week straight to kind of
mhm.
recover and get myself back to where I was. So that was the starting point for me. So it wasn't something like somebody that just like has social anxiety and is unable to get out. It was really all about the recharging for me.
Mm.
So with that in mind, though, I now have started to recharge more with people, which is kind of crazy. So that's why I say I've made that change. And it really has come about through music. And so when I first started this journey, the open mic scene is really big in Charlotte. There's a lot of really cool open mics that a lot of talented musicians go to. My experience with open mics before coming to Charlotte was almost like a glorified karaoke, right? Kind of
Oh yeah,
everybody
yeah,
gets
yeah.
up there, and it's almost kind of a joke, right? But it's very serious here. That's kind of where everybody goes to get their start. And so you meet a lot of really talented musicians at these open mics. And so, yeah, there's this one at a distillery in a little neighborhood here in Charlotte called Noda. It's called Great Wagon Road Distillery. And they have an open mic on Wednesday nights. And I had gone to one open mic, and I met a musician who was like, "Man, your sound is really cool. You should go check out GWR. I think you'd fit in really well and like meet a lot of people there." And so I went the next week, and over the next year, like a lot of those people became who I would consider to be some of my closest friends now in this stage of life. And it was all through sharing music and sharing what's on my heart and listening what's on their heart. And it's become a family. And so I think because of that, this community that we have now, I think that's what recharges me. That's what I want to be in. And so if I'm having a bad day or I've had a bad week, I'm looking forward to Wednesdays. I'm looking forward to going and being with my family so that I can recharge and I can, share what's on my heart and share what I'm doing. I might have a song that's not done yet, and I'll just play it for him, right? And that used to scare
Wow.
me in the
That's
past.
brave.
Yeah, it used to scare me because it's vulnerable.
Mhm.
But when you meet those people and you get to be with people that make you feel good about yourself, right? And that you can make feel good about themselves, it changes things. And so that's why when I'm sorry, I know you had him on last week, but Chris,
Our guy
Chris,
Chris.
yeah, Chris Conley turned me on to This and You. I was all about it because this is right down my alley, and what I'm focused on is being with people and how that's just life changing.
Oh, it's amazing. So you've gone through this like transition of like, being introverted and having to recharge by yourself, but
Mhm.
you've found this community. And I'm a firm believer that you are the five people that you're around the most, whether you like it or not. And so it really makes you think about the people that you hang around the most with, right? Your spouse is someone who you've kind of committed to your life, but then the other people that you interact with on the day-to-day basis, they can really impact like who you end up being. And so it sounds like they've kind of helped bring you out of like whatever the shell is and then help you express your passion. Walk me through how it felt maybe the first time that you did an open mic night, because for me, I don't sing well, right? And I don't play instruments. I've always wanted to sing. I don't know how to do that. But when you did your first open mic night and it was a respected thing, right? Not just a glorified karaoke. What did that feel like for you the first time?
It was wild. So my heart obviously is like
Mhm.
pumping in my chest,
Mhm. Mhm.
So all right, so to set it up so I can give you a picture of what the open mics can look like in
Yeah.
Charlotte. So one of the most popular ones is on a Monday night at a place called the Evening Muse. It's a music venue, it's a listening room. And so you go, even at an open mic, the expectation is that everyone is sitting down quiet and listening to the music. People go there for that reason, right? They
Wow.
go there for music. There are drinks, but you're not there for the drinks. You are there for the music. And so on a Monday night, there's anywhere from 75 to 150 people sitting down and listening to music. You get two songs if you play two originals. You get one song if you play a cover. And then you're off and you go in there, you draw a number. You don't know when you're going to go. You can get there early, but you draw a number and you go. So the first time I went, I drew seven. There's 20 spots, and then there goes to be a wait list. So usually ends up going to about 10:30 based on that. And they have a feature performer around 8:30 that plays a 30-minute set. So I go in, I draw a seven, which is like two before the feature performer, which, for me is like, it's great. I'll get out of here early, right? I
Yeah.
don't have to be out late. But then it's a little bit mind blowing because at that point, everybody's starting to come in for the feature. And so there probably was about 125, 150 people just sitting in the audience. And so I go up there and
Intently listening to you.
intently listening to you. Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, I go on, and of course, I feel like I want to throw up at first, right? But
Uh-huh.
you go
Mhm.
up there, and I think the thing about, or at least original music, is at that point it's things that I play over and over and over again. And so, once I start going, it's fine, but it's kind of the build up or coming off where you're like, oh my gosh, what do people think? But when
Yeah.
you're up there, you're kind of in the zone and you just do it.
You just
Um,
send it and see what happens.
you just press send. Yeah. And it went well and it was fine. It was great. There was like a pretty good response. And like I said, I met some people that night. I'm going to plug some people throughout this because I think they're
Got
all people
to.
that you should check out.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, First off is the Trash King, Tyler Hill.
Okay.
I'm wearing his shirt. This is one of
Love
my
it.
really good friends, Tyler, Tylor Hill. You can find him on social media and streaming platforms. But the feature that night was a guy called Low Groves. And he found me afterwards, and he's the one that told me about GWR. And so it was just this thing where you come in and you're really nervous and you don't know what you're gonna do. You're afraid to press send, right?
Mm.
But you just do it and you put yourself out there and you make it happen. And even if nothing did come from it, right? Just starting it, just doing it, the next time it gets easier, right? And the time after that, it gets easier. But I was fortunate enough that, to find people that enjoyed and liked what I did, and then, kind of putting me on to connecting me with other people and doing other things at that time.
It's amazing how you do just hit press send, but like other things happened for that button to get pressed. And so what would you tell someone who's waiting for the right time to press send on a passion project that they have, maybe a book that's in their mind that they haven't written yet, or maybe somebody that they need to talk to and fix a relationship with. How would you tell, like, what would you tell a listener if they're listening today and they have their finger ready to press send, but they haven't done it yet? What would you tell them?
There's no right time. I think
Mm.
that's the main thing, right? Is that I think it's you can go back and forth in your head. And obviously if you're trying to put out a product, right, you want it to be as good as it can be. But at a certain point, you can be your own worst critic, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of people get stuck. And especially in the music world. So I have friends who are incredible musicians, and they kind of just sit on their projects. Maybe they're trying to mix the whole thing themselves, and they're trying to do everything. And when you listen so intently to something that you're doing over and over and over again, you're gonna find things that you don't like about it. You can always find things that need improving.
Yeah.
But I think it's if it's something that you're creating, right? It's developing your compass so that you can just say, I'm gonna hit send now, and I'm gonna let it go. And the first, I read a quote one time, and I don't know who said it, but it said that when people listen to your music for the first time, the reaction that they're having is what you had the first time you heard it and got excited about it, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
it's not about going in and perfecting it, right? It's that feeling that it made you feel where you say, this is good. This is worth expanding on. This is worth me putting out and sharing with somebody. And so I think that that can go as far as, writing a book, a
Yeah.
podcast, music, art, whatever. And then as far as relationships go, right, I am a huge, huge advocate for just throwing that can cost throwing shit out there.
Oh, yes. Oh,
So, all
yes,
right.
sir.
So for just throwing shit out there and saying,
Mhm.
hey, I'm willing to own what I did, right? Just let me know what I did and we can talk about it. And if we ultimately have to part ways at the end, then that's fine. But now we're still better off because there's not this thing in between us that's
Mm.
just driving a wedge further and further. So I think that's the thing. I'm rambling a bit, but I think it's just that there is no good time. People talk about it with having kids, right? Oh, I want to have this in place and I want to do this and then I want to do this. But
Mhm.
you're always going to feel poor. You're always going to feel not ready. You're
Oh,
always going to not have what you think that you need. Right.
mhm.
And so I think that it's just getting into a mindset that if it's art that you're creating, that it's something that makes you excited, one. Right. And if it makes you excited, then there's going to be somebody out there that it makes excited as well. Right. Even if
Yeah.
it's only one person. Right. But even if not, it makes you excited. So put it out there. And then if it's anything else, just get going.
Listeners, I mean, you heard it from Kevin. He says to like just press send and go, and there's never a perfect time. And I want to pivot our conversation to talking about growing up, because when we grow up, in school for me, it was getting all of the right grades and getting the best grades and not missing a lot of school and getting on this path. And then when I graduated school, I'm like, shit, what's going to be my job? I love being with people, but like, what does that mean? Well, that honestly means 20 million different things. So, like, I even fell into the job that I do now just based on a hunch that I wanted to work with people. But I feel like when we grow up and our kids are watching us grow up right now and they're watching you do this thing for the first time, right? And so they learn from us what it means to be an adult, right? They learn from us what it means to chase our passions and to hit send on stuff. So, how do you encourage your own kids, right? Because they're watching you, go after this passion and chase this passion. So, how do you think you parent differently now? And maybe what would you tell people that have kids that and they want to pursue a passion, right? Because there's no right time, there's not enough time, there's never going to be enough money because there's always something to pay for these kids. But what would you tell somebody that's maybe wanting to encourage their kids to press send sooner?
Yeah, so this is I mean this is a huge thing, right? As a dad, so I've got three boys, 9, 7, and 5.
Mine are boys
Um,
too. First
all
and third
right.
grade.
How
Yeah,
many do you
yeah.
have?
I have two.
Okay, yeah, it's
Mhm.
wild. It's a wild
Mhm.
time.
I'm surrounded by men.
I know.
Surrounded.
Even our dog is a boy. So my poor
Same.
wife.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
so
Yes, I
uh,
understand.
but yeah, so it's a huge thing. My oldest son is a bit of a perfectionist. I think that is I'm not the oldest and neither is my wife, and so that's a new thing for us to try to navigate and figure out, how to teach him and help him grow and press send, right?
Mm,
And I think a big thing that I tell him a lot, I actually make him quote it a lot whenever he gets like really in his head. I tell him, what I say? Failure is a part of the process, not a result.
Mm,
Right. And so that's the thing, right? Is that if you don't put yourself out there and fail, you can't learn. Right. Now,
right.
if you fail over and over and you refuse to learn, then your failure becomes a result. Right. That's the end product. But if you just make it part of your process and you say, I'm going to do something new and it's going to make me uncomfortable and I'm not going to be great at it right away, then that's okay. Then whatever you do wrong or incorrectly or need to improve in, then you can notice what that is and you can work on it. So that's our quote. Failure is part of the process, not a result.
I love that. I think about it reminds me of a quote I heard about getting something to 80% and then the 20% is just
Yeah,
you. And so a lot of times in life, I think we want to get to that 100% and have something be totally perfect. But it's awesome for our kids to see us fail and send it and then learn from it. And so they're also watching how we learn or how we accept failure and what that looks like. I've obviously, I've been at doing work on my own for 2 years now. And so when I first started, I just decided to send it. Like, can I do this on my own? Is this going to be a thing? Haven't looked back since. Love it. But there have been times along the way where I failed and I've had terrible days. And I will sit at the dinner table and we do a high low. So any listeners out there, if you are like you've got kids and you want to find a way to connect with them, we do high low every day because I felt like tell me about your day was like they'd recount everything, but like the high low, like it really gets into like what is something that they're thinking about, and now they've got to be prepared to talk to me about it. But I
that's
will
really
tell
good.
them on my lows, like, I learned today X, and this was terrible for me. And I had a bad conversation, or I knew I did not get this one gig that I was like applying for because I said this, and like this did not go well. And I let my mind, I let my mind get the best of me because I feel like if we keep talking about the failures and the ways in which we learn, I feel like they're going to learn how to accept it and hopefully send it sooner than I did because I waited until I was good and ready to leave my job to try to go out on my own. But I'm like, please send it sooner. Send it sooner because you never know. Like there's so much opportunity in this world for us to learn and pursue a passion because no one probably gave you permission to do the singer songwriter, right? No one,
Nope.
no one, no one said, you know what, you should do that. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna, because now I have permission. You just decided to go.
Just do it.
All right, listeners, you've heard it first. Try to just send it today and remember that your kids are watching you and the ways in which that you're failing and you're learning, and you're not guaranteed tomorrow. So if you've got a passion, if you've got something that's on your heart today, send it.
Yeah. And it doesn't even go just to your kids, man. There's everybody
Mhm.
around you. There
Yes.
everybody is feeling the way that you feel, right? That's the
Yes.
big thing is that there's nothing new. And that's what's really cool about being with people is that um you get to experience them being good at something that you're not good at and you get to be something that they're not good at. And so if they experience you doing this, then you give them more confidence to do it. And so do it for yourself, do it for your kids, do it for everybody.
For everybody because they'll be impacted by you too. So good. All right, Kevin, thanks for being on the podcast today of Life is Better with You in it. And I love how you are being with people and you found this awesome community as you transition and you work on your passion project. I love it. Listeners, we'll put in a link to his website so you can take a look. But thanks, Kevin, for being on today.
Thanks, Jen, so much for having me on. This is fun.
All right. Life is Better with You in it, guys. Have a wonderful day.